It's working. Oh my gosh, I got the vlog camera working. That's exciting. I'm not filming on my phone anymore. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know it's been a while. Coming out of a bad mental health period has kind of sparked a little bit of an idea flow with mental health related videos, ways that I can just share my experiences and hopefully help other people. So I want to do a series of mental health related videos. This video is going to be about coping with panic attacks. I want to focus on anxiety and panic attacks separately. You might be wondering like, oh, isn't anxiety and panic attacks, you know, hand in hand? And that's actually another video I want to make, is distinguishing the two. But I want to focus this video specifically on panic attacks. So I'm going to be going over what a panic attack is and how to tell you're having one if you don't already know, and then I'm going to give you 6 tips on how to handle them better and cope with them. It's also been a while since I've done a YouTube video, so if I'm like awkward, just give me a little bit of slack because it's been a while. Talking to a camera is weird. The quality on this, I forget how good it is. You can see my whole breakout. That's awesome. Okay, so the big question to start off this video, what is a panic attack? So if you Google search what is a panic attack, the first basic definition that you're gonna see is a panic attack is a sudden episode of intense fear or anxiety and physical symptoms based on a perceived threat rather than imminent danger. But I went and found my own definition that I liked a little bit better. This definition comes from the Better Health channel, and they say a panic attack is a brief episode of intense anxiety which causes the physical sensations of fear. They also say that up to 35% of the population has panic attacks at some point in their lives. We love that for us. So the commonalities of both of these two definitions are basically that it's just a sudden, intense episode of fear. Basically, I've heard that panic attacks can last anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes to like about an hour. So how do you know if you're having a panic attack? Well, you might experience symptoms such as racing heartbeat, feeling lightheaded, feeling hot or feeling cold, sweating, trembling, shaking, nausea, pain in your chest, feeling of choking or unableness to breathe, weak in the knees, and my favorite, dissociating. I actually hate it. While having a panic attack, you may feel like you are losing control, going to faint or pass out, and you may even feel like you're gonna have a heart attack or straight up die. I'll get into this later, but you can't. You literally cannot die. Panic attacks are usually triggered by something that maybe is traumatic from something from your past, a certain person, a certain memory, a smell. Like, they can be triggered by many things, but usually a normal panic attack has a cause or a reason for occurring. But then you have panic disorder, which is unfortunately what I have. The difference with panic disorder and when you might get diagnosed with panic disorder is your panic attacks don't necessarily seem to have a cause. They just kind of happen for no reason. I'll literally be laying in bed and my brain thinks we're in Nam, like I'm fighting off bears in a forest, like I'm 3 seconds away from my own death, and I'm doing nothing. So I read that people who experience panic disorder may have some periods with few or no panic attacks but have lots at other times, and that's actually exactly what will happen to me. I will go a couple of years without having a single panic attack. I'll still have plenty of anxiety, but I'm not having like debilitating panic attacks, and then I'll go through periods where I'm having them 6 or 7 times a day for months. It can really knock me on my ass. So you might be wondering what makes me qualified to talk to you about panic attacks. I'm not a therapist. I need to make a disclosure, I'm not a therapist. However, I do go to therapy. My legs started falling asleep. And as I said, I have suffered my fair share of panic attacks. I've had a lot of experience with dealing with panic attacks and learning to get better at dealing with panic attacks. And I'm just now coming out of a period of time where I had a lot of panic attacks again. This feels pretty relevant to me, and hopefully my tips and things that help me personally can also help you. So here are my 6 tips on how to handle panic attacks. Tip number 1 is breathing exercises. Breathing exercises are very important when it comes to panic attacks and anxiety. I have recommended one before on my channel in another anxiety video, but I have since learned that at least for me, when I'm very anxious, I can only do a certain breathing exercise for a certain period of time before my mind starts to realize what it's doing and it becomes a little bit ineffective. So I have to cycle essentially between multiple different breathing techniques depending on the day, the time, how anxious I'm feeling, whatever. So I'm gonna give you 3 of my favorite breathing exercises and techniques, and you can Google a lot more. I think there's many different ones, but these are the ones that have been like taught to me and that work the best for me. The first one is you're gonna want to breathe in for 3 seconds and out for 3 seconds, very, very lightly into your belly. And the way it was described to me was to think of how a baby would breathe when it's asleep. So the baby's breathing very lightly, very softly, in for 3, out for 3, no real holds. Sometimes when I breathe out, I'll hold it for a second and then repeat, but I don't hold it when I'm breathing in. The second one is called box breathing. Box breathing is called box breathing because you're going in a series of four times. So you're gonna breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold it there for 4 and repeat. Through all of these breathing exercises, make sure that you're breathing into your belly and not your chest. When you're anxious, you're actually breathing shallowly into your chest, which creates more anxiety. So breathing into your belly is going to help you calm down. The third breathing technique I'm going to teach you is 5-3-8 breathing. This is the one I used in my other video that I uploaded a handful of years ago. This one, you're going to breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 and repeat. So there's no hold at the end of the 8. I think if you try to hold it, you might die because it's tough to breathe out for 8 seconds. But I have noticed that when I'm anxious, breathing out for 8 seconds is way easier than breathing out when I'm not as anxious. So I kind of sometimes use that as a test to see like how anxious am I really? I don't know if that makes sense. So when I first heard about breathing techniques, I was like, okay, like breathing, like I'm fighting for my life here. Breathing is not gonna help me, but it does. This is backed up by science. So breathing calmly, fully, deeply is actually basically flipping a switch from your sympathetic nervous system to your parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is basically your fight or flight, and that's what's activated when you're having a panic attack. And your parasympathetic nervous system is like your calm, normal, at rest. So these breathing techniques, and it also ties back to what I said about breathing into your belly and not your chest, is it's literally flipping a switch and telling your body that it's okay, we're fine, we're calm, there's no threat, and we don't need to be in adrenaline overload mode. I'm even going to read you a quote so that you know I'm not making this up. So CBC states that breathing deeply with a slow and steady inhalation to exhalation ratio signals our parasympathetic nervous system to calm the body down. So remember that. Tip number 2, you've probably heard a billion times, is grounding. I'm not going to go into super deep detail with this. There's a lot you can research about it, but it's basically using your senses to ground yourself so you will stop dissociating. Like I said, I hate dissociating, so grounding is a big thing for me because I don't like to feel out of my body or floaty or anything like that. So it might be like looking around and identifying all of the things you see in the room, or feeling the ground underneath you, or rubbing your hand on, you know, an interesting texture, listening to all the sounds you hear, the wind, the birds, music, whatever's there. Just using your senses to remind yourself that you're here, you're safe, and to stop dissociating. It's very important when you're having a panic attack, if this is possible for your situation, to be in a calm environment. You don't want to be around a lot of people in a big crowd with anything important to do. My cat just jumped up on the sofa. This isn't always possible, so it's just about making it as calm as possible. So if you are in a big crowded place, maybe find a bathroom or a quiet room you can go in and sit in and catch your breath, do some breathing, whatever you have to do. One thing that's always really helped me when I'm really anxious because I get overstimulated and sound is overwhelming, my cat's licking my camera. Come here, you goon. Hey, you're causing mayhem. Everyone say hello. So I really like to listen to white noise, and I will put on these like 4K drone footage travel videos, like a flight around Norway or Ireland, and I'll play those. They'll have like soft piano music, something really calm that will ease my overstimulation. Bye. Tip number 3 is guided meditations. So this is only if you can stomach it. Sometimes when I'm really anxious and having a really bad panic attack, like I said, I get really overstimulated, and hearing somebody talk is straight straight up too much for me. I have to tell people to shut up respectfully, and the guided meditations are just a little bit too much. But if you can stomach it, they're really helpful. They help keep your mind distracted from the panic attack and focused on something else, and they oftentimes walk you through really great breathing techniques, grounding techniques that help you calm down in that moment of fear. Tip number 4, hear me out, ice. Frozen H2O. Ice, in basic terms, shocks your nervous system. BePresentOhio.org says the ice techniques work to help jolt your system out of the fight or flight response. They act as grounding exercises to help distract you from the feelings of panic and focus on your body and your surroundings. The ice can also trigger a pain-like response in your brain that forces your neurotransmitters to refocus. So you might be asking, well, Liz, do I eat the ice? No. My favorite ways to apply ice to my anxiety are as follows. First, I will get a bowl of water and I'll put ice cubes in said bowl, and then after the water turns really cold, I just stick my face in the bowl, just long enough to wake me up a little bit. Another really good one is to take a single ice cube and place it or rub it around your left collarbone. I can't tell you exactly the science behind this, but I've been told that there's some sort of nerve that connects directly to your heart here, and so putting the ice here is like a really direct, fast response for calming your panic. But this actually has helped me a lot. And the third one, which is probably the most common one that you'll see, is to actually just hold an ice cube in your hand and let it melt. This is also a very good grounding technique. I don't do this one as much, I have sensitive hands, but I really appreciate ice for all of its healing powers. It truly helps me, and I know it sounds goofy, but it's just a really good way to just kind of snap out of that super anxious state just for a couple seconds at the minimum. Tip number 5 is self-talk and talk from others. So having someone around who can remind you that it's just a panic attack, you're safe, there's nothing to worry about, can be extremely helpful. So if you have somebody that you live with or you're spending a lot of time with, tell them specifically how they can help when you're feeling anxious or having a panic attack. And one of the things that helped for me, again, was just having somebody remind me that I can't die, I can't pass out, I'm not losing my mind, I'm not going crazy, it will pass, it's temporary, it will be gone. All of these things, even if they have to say it 100 times, just really helps you fight that feeling of fear. So I just want to reiterate, you can't die, you won't pass out, you won't go crazy, you won't die. You can't die from a panic attack. You can do your own research if you don't believe me. I did not come with stats or anything or quotes. But if you don't believe me, do your research. You can't die from a panic attack. If you don't have somebody to talk to you, self-talk is huge. However, self-talk is a skill that takes a lot of practice. I'm still working on it, but telling yourself those same things. And the hardest part of that is recognizing to even tell yourself that in the moment of fear, because in that moment of your panic attack, I promise that's the last thing you're going to be thinking about. So even if you write down on a list the things you want to remind yourself and keep it somewhere that you know you'll find it easily when you're having that panic attack, that might help you as well. And again, just remember that all panic attacks do pass. They won't last forever. They happen in relatively short time spans, even though it feels like an eternity. It will pass even if it happens again, which it probably will, but hopefully with these tips you'll be better prepared and ready to cope with it, and it won't be as scary. The biggest thing for me with anxiety was the fear of the anxiety itself. I was always so scared of having another panic attack, and that would scare me the most. So if you can learn to not be afraid of the panic attack and say, okay, if the panic attack happens, it happens, I know what to do, I'll be ready, it'll pass, that's gonna help you gain your power back. And my final tip, tip number 6, don't fight it. People are probably gonna think I'm crazy for this one unless you've been in therapy yourself, and you might even think you can skip this one. Do not skip this tip. This is probably the biggest tip. The more you fight your anxiety, the stronger it's going to show up. It can sense fear. The Washington Post states, these avoidance strategies make anxiety worse in the long run. Being anxious is like getting into quicksand. The more you fight it, the deeper you sink. And PsychCentral.com says ignoring anxiety can often lead to worsened symptoms or new associated symptoms such as gastrointestinal problems, insomnia, and depression. So don't fight it. The best thing you can do here, I'm gonna call it SAS. Sit with it, acknowledge it, separate from it. Sitting with it is just letting it happen. So resist the urge to fight it, try to stop avoiding it, pretending it's not happening, telling yourself it's not there. It is. And that leads into acknowledge what's happening, acknowledge the feelings, the sensations, the thoughts you're having, but then separate from it. Tell yourself that while I'm thinking these things, this isn't me, this is my anxiety, not my rational, calm, conscious mind. This is my subconscious in overdrive, thinking we're fighting the Second World War, and it wants to be heard. So acknowledge it like a separate piece of you, separated, and that's when you'll start to be able to work through them. So, in conclusion, these were my 6 little tips on how to cope with panic attacks. I hope you learned something from this video. I hope you found a tip that could help you if you struggle with panic attacks. If you have any questions or video ideas that you want to see me make in the future about anything, but about mental health too, leave me a comment, ask me a question. I will see you guys in my next video, which I hope will be soon. I'm not going to give you a date, but you know, consider it a mystery. When will I show up? We don't know. If you think anxiety sucks, give this video a big old thumbs up. It would really help me out, and I will see you guys in my next video.